What if the person who steals your art becomes the one you cannot resist? Barbara Kiesilka, celebrated for her emotive paintings, never imagined her life could twist this way. One morning, she entered her studio, her latest work gone. Her heart raced. Every brush stroke, every color, now haunted by absence. Her first reaction was anger. She called the police, blocked doors, questioned everyone nearby. Yet the thief remained unseen, moving in shadows, rewriting her sense of security. Days passed, but every new painting felt incomplete, haunted by what was missing. Then an invitation arrived. No sender, just a location, a time, and an unsettling curiosity she could not ignore. Barbara arrived. A dimly lit gallery she'd never seen. Among stolen works, a man stood calm, confident, almost unnervingly composed. "You've wondered why your works vanished," he said. Her words caught in her throat. How did he know? How did he enter her world? With each word, each glance, the lines between danger and attraction blurred. Barbara realized this encounter was no mere theft, it was a revelation, an irresistible puzzle. Barbara awoke to silence heavier than any darkness. The studio felt colder, emptier, charged with invisible energy. Every corner whispered secrets. She touched a canvas, hers, yet unfamiliar. The thief left another mark. Not theft, not destruction, a signature of presence, intimate yet challenging. It was a conversation written in paint and shadow. She wanted to see him, to understand the mind that terrified and mesmerized. Invitations continued, each a labyrinth of light and shadow, pushing her boundaries further. Her friends warned, "It's dangerous. Step back," but Barbara couldn't. There was a force drawing her, a gravitational pull she could neither name nor resist. Imagining him among her pieces, studying her strokes, sensing her emotions, ignited fascination. Danger and attraction, fear and desire intertwined. The city outside carried on oblivious. But for Barbara, every breath was a negotiation between obsession and art, fear and irresistible curiosity. The night of the first confrontation arrived. The gallery was silent except for a faint hum of lights. Shadows moved unnaturally. He appeared, calm, poised. Eyes that seemed to look through her yet into her. "You've found me," he said softly. No threat, only recognition of her presence, talent, vulnerability. Barbara's hands trembled. Reality, this dark, compelling reality, overwhelmed her imagination. A silent understanding passed between them. This was no longer mere theft. It was transformation, a dangerous dance of morality, attraction, and obsession. The following days were a whirlwind of obsession. Barbara couldn't think of anything but the presence of the thief, this enigmatic man who had crossed the line between crime and intrigue. Every brush stroke on her canvas seemed to echo his silent whispers. She painted furiously, each color a battle between fear and fascination. He was always just out of reach. Letters arrived at her door, elegantly written, containing fragments of riddles about her own art. Each note was a challenge, a seduction, a puzzle she couldn't resist solving. Barbara's friends noticed the change. "You're consumed," they warned, concerned for her safety. She laughed, almost nervously, and admitted she couldn't stop. Every meeting, every secret, made her heart race in a way nothing else had. Then one night, the gallery invitation came again. A different location, this time a private mansion on the outskirts of the city. Shadows stretched across the walls. The thief was waiting, calm and deliberate. He gestured toward her paintings, stolen and yet so alive in his presence. "You see them differently now," he said. The thrill of danger fused with irresistible curiosity, and Barbara felt herself crossing a line she had never dared approach. Her art, her life, her emotions all interwoven with the enigma before her. Each encounter deepened the allure and risk. She realized that surrendering to this dangerous fascination might destroy her, yet she couldn't turn away. A storm of emotions surged inside her: anger at the theft, at his cunning, and something she had never expected. Attraction, undeniable and potent. Every stolen painting, every whispered note, every encounter in shadows became a thread in a tapestry she couldn't resist weaving. Barbara understood that she was no longer just an artist. She had become part of the story, entwined with the man who had stolen more than her paintings. He had stolen her certainty, her control, her equilibrium. As she left the mansion, the night air cold and electric, she knew the game had only just begun. The thief had opened a door, and Barbara's life would never be the same again. Every sense heightened, every emotion raw. She felt the intoxicating mixture of fear and fascination coursing through her, knowing that every step forward was a step deeper into a world she could not escape. Barbara returned to her studio, her thoughts a storm of curiosity, fear, and a strange, irresistible fascination. The thief, the man who had taken what was most precious to her, her art, her expression, pieces of her soul had vanished as suddenly as he appeared, leaving only traces of his audacity behind. The empty frames on her walls stared back at her, silent witnesses to her vulnerability, mocking her with their emptiness. Nothing in her world felt stable anymore. Driven by a combination of obsession and inspiration, Barbara began experimenting with her art in ways she had never dared before. Lines became jagged and unpredictable, colors clashed violently, and shadows emerged in spaces they were never meant to inhabit. Her paintings seemed to live, breathing her fear, her excitement, her hidden desires. Each stroke of the brush carried the weight of anticipation, tension, and longing. The art world noticed the change. Friends, collectors, and critics praised her new depth and raw intensity, unaware of the thrilling obsession that pushed her hand and guided each brushstroke. Every evening, after locking the doors, she pored over the thief's messages, each note, each word, each subtle taunt, replaying them in her mind like an insolvable puzzle. She dissected them, analyzing every nuance, every hidden meaning, even the cadence of his voice. She was drawn into a dangerous game of intellect and instinct, one she could not and did not want to escape. Then, one evening, the phone rang. A soft, controlled voice, familiar, impossible, compelling, whispered a sentence she could not ignore. "Do you want to see what you can never forget?" The line went dead, leaving Barbara's heart pounding, mind racing, curiosity and dread intertwining in ways she could not untangle. Despite every instinct telling her to flee, every warning screaming in her mind, she felt an irrepressible pull. Her artistic soul demanded confrontation, demanded to understand, to experience, to dance with danger. She prepared herself meticulously for the next encounter, knowing that each meeting drew her deeper into an uncharted world, a realm where passion blurred with peril, fascination with fear, and desire with danger, a place where the line between obsession and enlightenment was thinner than she could have imagined. Days turned into nights, and Barbara found herself tracing shadows in every corner of her studio, every reflection in the glass of her frames. Each new painting became a silent conversation with the unseen thief, a coded dialogue she alone could decipher. The thrill of creation intertwined with the tension of pursuit, each brushstroke carrying a pulse of danger, a hint of seduction, a whisper of the forbidden. She noticed patterns emerging. Certain shapes, colors, and lines echoed the subtle messages left by the mysterious figure. The art was no longer just hers, it was a shared language, an unspoken exchange that danced between fascination and fear. Her friends, noticing the intensity of her work, expressed awe at her artistic evolution, unaware that behind every view lay a secret rendezvous, an encounter that challenged her perception of trust, risk, and desire. Barbara began venturing into the city at night, following obscure leads and cryptic clues. Each step carried risk, each decision felt like a step deeper into a world where rules were rewritten, and normality was merely an illusion. In dimly lit streets, in abandoned galleries, she glimpsed hints of the thief's life, fragments of the man who had turned her world upside down. Each discovery pulled her closer, not just to him, but to a truth she had never imagined about the nature of obsession, attraction, and the fragility of her own convictions. Every encounter, real or imagined, left her trembling. She questioned her own morality, her fascination with danger, and the limits of her courage. Yet, despite the fear, there was a magnetic pull she could not resist, a craving to understand the man who had stolen not just her art, but a piece of her soul. Barbara realized she was no longer simply a victim or an observer. She had become a participant in a dance as old as desire itself, a game where passion and peril were inseparable. One evening, Barbara received a package with no sender, only a note inside. "Meet me where your art first drew you." Her pulse quickened. She realized the game had become personal. The lines between admiration, obsession, and danger blurred beyond recognition. She followed the cryptic directions to a deserted warehouse, walls adorned with shadows of stolen paintings. Each frame whispered secrets, each color carried a memory, each brushstroke a confession. Then she saw him closer than ever before, his eyes reflecting both mischief and an almost predatory curiosity. He spoke without raising his voice, but his words reverberated in her mind. "You wondered why your work felt incomplete, why you sensed a presence you could never name." Barbara froze. She understood that the thefts, the messages, and even the risks she had taken were part of the story he wanted to share, a narrative of connection, challenge, and revelation. The encounter was electric. Every movement, every glance created tension and intimacy. Barbara felt the simultaneous fear of vulnerability and thrill of discovery. In his presence, she confronted truths about herself she had never dared to acknowledge: the desire for excitement, the thrill of danger, and the intoxicating pull of someone who could both frighten and fascinate. The stolen art had been a prelude. Now the real story was unfolding, and Barbara realized she could not turn away. Hours passed like minutes. The conversation, the silent exchanges, the subtle shifts of gaze created a rhythm that blended curiosity and dread. She realized that in understanding him, she was beginning to understand herself, the delicate balance of risk and reward, love and fear, freedom and confinement. Barbara left the warehouse with her mind racing, her senses heightened. Every step outside felt different, as if the world itself had shifted. The stolen paintings, the hidden messages, and the enigmatic man had opened a door she could never close. She returned to her studio, but her work no longer felt like mere art. It was a dialogue, a challenge, a dance with danger. Each canvas now carried the memory of that night, each sketch a secret she shared only with herself. Days turned into weeks, and the encounters grew more daring. He left traces, clues embedded in her exhibitions, in the colors, in the brush strokes, leading her to moments of revelation. Barbara realized she was no longer just an observer in her own life. She was an active participant in a narrative orchestrated by someone who understood her better than anyone else. Every message, every encounter blurred the line between fear and fascination. She found herself anticipating his appearances, feeling a thrill that matched the pulse of her creativity. The city around her seemed both familiar and alien, a stage for the unfolding drama that connected them invisibly. Barbara questioned her own morality, her boundaries, and her courage. She had entered a game she could not predict, but one she could not resist. With each brushstroke, she encoded fragments of her journey, embedding clues for him, a silent conversation across the canvas. Art became their language, subtle, dangerous, intimate. She learned to trust intuition, to read patterns, to anticipate the unexpected. Her life was no longer ordinary. It was a tapestry of suspense, desire, and the seductive call of mystery. Barbara began noticing subtle changes in her own art. Colors that once flowed naturally now hinted at coded messages, hidden symbols that only someone who had studied her work could decipher. She realized the man knew her deeply, not just the surface, but the essence of her creativity, her fears, and her desires. Each stolen painting had been a lesson, each disappearance a puzzle crafted to challenge her mind and spirit. At night, she found herself walking the quiet streets of the city, retracing her steps, trying to anticipate where he might appear next. The air was heavy with anticipation, every shadow a possibility, every passing figure a potential encounter. Her heartbeat synchronized with the rhythm of danger and allure that now defined her existence. One evening, she discovered an envelope slipped under her studio door. Inside, a single photograph showed her first painting from years ago, the one she thought was lost forever. Written on the back was a cryptic message. "You've always known me. Now, know yourself." Barbara's breath caught. Who was he, really? A thief, a genius, a mirror of her own soul. She realized that the chase, the mystery, and the attraction were intertwined in ways she could never have imagined. Her life became a delicate balance between obsession and creation. She painted with a heightened intensity, channeling fear, fascination, and forbidden curiosity into each stroke. The city, the galleries, and even her own home became a labyrinth of secret signals, invisible threads connecting her to someone who had become both muse and enigma. She was caught in a story that was no longer hers alone, it was theirs, an evolving drama that neither could fully control. Barbara felt herself changing, evolving under the weight of mystery and attraction. The man's presence, though unseen, lingered in her studio, in the corners of her mind, in every stroke she made. She realized that the thefts had been a form of communication, a dialogue without words, a challenge that demanded both courage and intellect. She began leaving subtle cues in her new paintings, messages meant for him alone. Shadows, colors, and brush strokes formed patterns that only he could recognize. It was as if the city itself had become their secret gallery, a space where danger and desire merged into a fragile harmony. One night, she followed a trail of clues to an abandoned warehouse by the river. The moonlight reflected off the water, casting eerie patterns across the walls. Inside, she found more than her paintings. She found fragments of her own past, memories she thought were buried, now rearranged into a story she could neither escape nor control. And then he appeared. Calm, commanding, yet enigmatic. "You've learned more than I expected," he said, his voice both taunting and respectful. Barbara's heart raced. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet every fiber of her being drew her closer. This man, this thief, had become the axis around which her entire world rotated. She realized that their connection was more than a mere obsession. It was a collision of fate, of art, and of the human heart. She didn't just want to know him, she needed to understand him, to unravel the enigma that had consumed her life and art. And in that moment, she understood the ultimate truth. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved, they are meant to transform. Barbara's life was no longer just about painting, it had become a labyrinth of shadows and revelations. Each stolen artwork, each encounter, each whispered secret drew her deeper into a world where trust and danger coexisted. Yet she no longer feared it. The man who had taken her art, who had disrupted her life, had also illuminated it in ways she could never have imagined. She realized that creation and destruction were inseparable. Her passion for art, once confined to the canvas, now extended into a living story, a story intertwined with mystery, with him, and with the choices that defined her. Every stolen painting had become a mirror reflecting her courage, her vulnerability, and her resilience. In the final encounter, in a hidden gallery lit only by moonlight, Barbara confronted the man one last time. She no longer felt anger, nor confusion, nor fear. Only clarity. "You are not just a thief," she whispered. "You are a part of my story." He smiled, a fleeting expression of acknowledgement and understanding. "And you are a part of mine," he replied. Barbara returned to her studio the next morning, a sense of peace settling over her. She picked up her brush and, for the first time in years, painted freely, not in fear, not in secrecy, but in truth. Every stroke was bold, every color vivid, every line a testament to a life reclaimed. The art world would never fully understand what had happened, the mystery behind the stolen paintings, or the unspoken bond forged in shadows. But Barbara didn't need them to. She had survived the theft, the intrigue, and the fascination, and had emerged stronger, wiser, and infinitely more alive. Her life, her art, her choices each now carried the weight and beauty of the untold story. And as she stood before her canvas, she understood something profound. Sometimes the greatest masterpieces are not the ones we hang in galleries, but the ones we live.